Welcome to Parenting Tips with Dr. Glow on the WDKX Podcast Network, where the conversation never ends. I am Dr. Gloria Morgan, and I'm reminding you that education is in my DNA. Last month, I attended a screening of a documentary called Ebony Canal. The content was one that was eye opening for those in the audience, and it chronicled the lives of expected mothers as they were going through their childbirth journey. The film addressed the disparity, or health disparity, I should say, among women of color. The director was gracious. He did a panel talk, and I had a chance to speak with him after the event at a very nice reception. I had the pleasure of speaking with the director of the film, Emmai Alaquiva, and I invited him to join me on this podcast because I think mom and dad, his story is one that you would value and can help you even as you are, whether going through the childbirth journey in the future or you have young ones who may be interested in film. Let me tell you a little bit about this gentleman. But first of all, welcome, Ime.
Thank you so much, Dr. Glow, for having me on this incredible platform in order to really change as many lives as I can.
You are more than welcome. This gentleman, folks, was once homeless. He is now a notice what I'm saying, 6-time Emmy, 3-time Webby, and an NAACP Image Award winning film director. He crystallizes his cinematic poetry by creating so many things, and he's done Roc Nation, he's done Rihanna's FENTY brand, he has also done Daniel's Tiger Neighborhood, and a lot more. So recently, he's directed this film called The Ebony Canal. He is a photographer, or I should say, a published photographer for the Smithsonian. Most of us are familiar with the Smithsonian. And one of the things that really caught my attention is that he was able to get Viola Davis, who we know as an EGOT, to narrate this film. And he'll talk more about that. So let's just dive into who this person is and what he has done. Of course, I get a little humbled knowing that he has uh, been nationally interviewed by Good Morning America and Forbes magazine, as well as New York Times. Can we just say he is someone to be celebrated? Thank you again for joining me, and I'd like for us to hear more information about your history, your interest in filmmaking, and a little bit about your background. On the
At the age of 13, I tried to sell drugs. I thought it was big, bad, and tough in my neighborhood. But the first time I went to sell drugs, I got robbed at gunpoint. The first day I sold drugs was the last day, but I had to grab something. I had to hold around something. And what I held on to was a hip hop group by the name of De La Soul. They had a song called Me, Myself, and I. And at the age of 13, I sort of thought it was just me, myself, and I, surviving. Mother had 2 jobs. Father wasn't really in the picture. So I fell in love with hip hop, and I began to internalize how hip hop spoke to me from a rhythmic standpoint, a linguistic standpoint as well. So I got into hip hop, and hip hop really gave me my foundation on how to tell stories. But of course, when you're growing up, life gets in the way of living sometimes. I was diagnosed with HIV/AIDS at an early time where a lot of people didn't understand. They really didn't understand kind of what this dis-ease was. So, it rendered a lot on me having to come home from school and step over my sister who was too weak to get up from the living room on me mentally. And, she passed, and I had to take on the responsibilities of taking care of my two nieces who were 3 and 5 at the time. And that was just a lot on me mentally, and I rendered myself homeless. I was out here in the streets of Pittsburgh, homeless, sleeping on the bridges, eating at kitchens, soup kitchens, and taking showers at the local YMCA. But one day, there was a restaurant called Original's Hot Dog Shop that was in Pittsburgh, and I would normally get their French fries and go across the street on this wall that everyone would sit on. I was sleeping on the other side of that wall, and one of them turned around and spit on me. It was at that moment where I said, what all of my ancestors done before me, what so many people have fought for my life, I'm going to render myself of being an individual that could be spit on. I called my mother on a payphone. I said, Mom, I've been homeless, can I sleep on your couch? She said, why did it take you so long? Like, why are you hard-headed? Like most Black men could be, like, stop being so strong. Put your cape down. Let me iron it out for you and get you back out. And that's exactly what my mother did. And bless her heart, I love her dearly. She's still with us, but she was the Harriet Tubman of my life. Right. So I prayed to God. I said, God, if you allow me to get on my feet, I'll spend the rest of my life helping others. So that's when I started to crystallize the human spirit through cinematic and purposeful storytelling through the arts. Saved my life. So, all right, so what could I do trying to save others through arts? So that's when I started to get into advocacy. And the key point in my advocacy is in 2020, I had to explain to my 8-year-old daughter who George Floyd was, but she kept hearing about George Floyd. So when I told her about George Floyd, I said, that's what I do. Dad's going to go out to these protests. And I took photography and video and bring it home. My 8-year-old would look over my shoulder and, she's like, there's no one doing sign language. And at the time we were learning ASL. That's poignant when an 8-year-old tells an adult that, hey, someone missing. Her and I, we put together a PSA for the deaf and the hard of hearing called Unspeakable. It was released in 2020 in July. It went on to be seen by 300 million people in 60 countries. It was at the age of 8 featured on Good Morning America. So she knew the power of her voice. So I internalized that and said, you know what, I want to work on these types of projects, which brought me to the Ebony Canal in 2023, putting together something that I saw was an issue, and I wanted to use the art to sort of orbit around that issue.
Yeah, I'm going to pause you right there because one of the things I want the listeners to know about you is that your community efforts and the things that you've done have been recognized by Barack Obama for what you've done in the community. So what I'm asking you is to continue with your dialogue related to the Ebony Canal means and why this particular documentary.
This brings me to how, the Ebony Canal came about. The Ebony Canal, of course, we started in 2023. And I wanted to incorporate so many poetic and cultural equities into, beginning with the name. Ebony being a dark brown shade or a black color, one body of life to another body of life, but also the canal, the birth canal as well. So starting with that in itself, and then following the journey, the birthing journeys of 4 women. And we sort of tackle the disparities. We tackle the healing, lead with a type of hopefulness. This film isn't just doom and gloom. This is a very joyful film that actually ends with the children's first birthday, which is absolutely phenomenal to watch. We interviewed the top experts, Charles Johnson, Elaine Welder-Roth, Kimberly Seals-Ellers, interviewed top doctors, CDC, and then we also interviewed top advocates that's in this work that are really doing this work on the ground. When we look at doulas and we look at midwifery, all of this has been included. On top of that, the music. That's what separates the Ebony Canal from an Aftershock or from other films and things of that nature. We love all of those films, but we wanted to do something cinematically, clinically, and culturally different. And we feel as though we've been able to accomplish that with this film.
Thank you so much. I do want to tell you that there were so many people who walked away inspired by what you do. You've shared your inspiration and your, I guess, what I could call the bottom of the bucket experience when
Sure.
someone spit on you. What insight, moms and dads, granddads, aunties, uncles, grandmas are listening to my podcast. Even some teachers are using my podcast for some lessons in their classrooms. But what insight would you like to give to parents or those adults who are working with children? Um, what insight would you like to share with them who may be
So
interested in film or doing something beyond where they may be at the bottom of the bucket?
I wanted to change the trajectory of generations. The men didn't marry the women in their lives. As a matter of fact, I can't even, in my history, I don't even know, a group of great grandparents or great great grandparents that were married. So
Okay.
I wanted to, so as a parent, I wanted to put my hat on of change. I wanted to marry my wife. And I've been married for 14 years. We have a 14-year-old, and that is my core focus as an individual and as a human being, because when you have that focus, especially as a father, a lot of things fall in place. And now I know a lot of fathers that might have, some issues, related to parenting, but it's not about, giving up. It's about moving forward, make sure that the core agenda, which is the child, is always center focus. A lot of times we get wrapped up in, oh, she did this to me, oh, he did that to me.
Mhm.
We focus on the core agenda, which is the child, which is our future. A lot
Exactly.
of things fall in place, and a lot of things are become, begin to make sense when
Mm.
you put your agendas to the side.
Yeah.
That's what makes parenting. That's what makes co-parenting. Even if you're not the parent, if
Yes.
you're the partner, these things really help out. Now, in a lot of Black communities, there are a lot of kerfuffles that are associated with parenting. But when we make the child the core agenda, a lot of things will fall in place for you.
I totally agree with what you have shared. And one of the things I valued about the film is that you included fathers, you included husbands, and they spoke to the experiences they had through the pregnancy.
Absolutely.
It was a full circle moment. I literally, I was married to my husband. We had 3 children, and they're adults now. And one of the things I value is that we did that co-parenting. We were engaged, he was engaged, and we had that journey together in parenting. And some things may have fallen off, but the core and the foundation there was there. So kudos to you and your wife, 14 years,
Absolutely.
and to your daughter.
Thank
So
you.
one of the things that I like to say is I like to quote people, and I'm a history nut. I'm a researcher too. So one of the things you said after last month's event is something I want to share with our listeners. And then I'd like to ask if you have any final comments that you would like to make. But you said it took all of us to get into this mess related to health disparities for maternal health, and it will take all of us to get out. That spoke to me very well, not just about the disparity in health for our birthing mothers, but for a lot of things that happen in our society. So thank you for that statement. Any final comments you'd like to share? with our
I
listeners?
just like to say, anyone watching this and anyone listening to this, you could be a vessel, pun intended. Uh,
Eh,
Black and brown women and birthing folks have been a part of the undercurrent
mhm.
of a system that, hasn't been the greatest for us, but it's going to take you to allow us to crystallize a new wave, pun intended, of solution-driven practices that is going to eradicate this issue within the next 10 years, because 80 to 90% of this is preventable. And I want to repeat that.
Oh, wow.
To 90% of these losses are preventable.
That's major.
So that's when we need you to take your surfboard out,
Yeah.
get on this wave of a movement
Mhm.
on the journey of the Ebony Canal. Follow us on Instagram at the Ebony Canal, all social media on the Ebony Canal. Feel free to donate to our mission. Check in with us for, screenings that are coming up. And we are on our way to our Oscar campaign for the next 3 months.
Okay.
Our Oscar campaign.
Okay.
And just so you know, we haven't had time to update our bio.
Okay.
Won 3 Cannes Awards
Ooh.
at the Cannes Film Festival.
Oh, congratulations.
8 Cannes this year. Actually, we won last week. So just want to say thank you all so much for your support in getting us there.
That's great news. Thank you for that update. Thank you for the contact information. I was going to ask you for that, so you jump right in. I appreciate the time you've taken. For those of you who are listening, we had some technical issues getting onto this, but we weathered that storm. We rode the surfboard, and we're riding the wave to address health disparity and address the things that have been brought to light with this documentary film. Please, please take the time, mom, dad, grandma, granddad, to go to a screening, to even take time to research and learn about this project. You have been listening to Parenting Tips with Dr. Glow, and I am elated that I am part of the WDKX Podcast Network, where the conversation never ends. Listeners, I have one question for you. What can you do? Listen carefully. What can you do to advocate for Black maternal health?